Hey, deserving listeners, 90 Day Fiancé. Let's watch.
When not to cross the line, he continues to bring up stuff about other people when he's got more problems than anyone in his own relationship.
Just don't say another word, please.
Maybe he needs to realize he's hurting you.
I get it.
So now Liz is triangulated into the conflict between Ed and, I guess, Yara. It looks like Jovi was carted away by the producers, maybe. And it's affecting Liz, and now the conflict is between Liz and Ed has now reestablished himself as a scapegoat. It's possible, actually, have I ever said this before, that it's possible that Ed grew up in a system where he was scapegoated and he learned he had to be similar to what I was saying earlier, actually, about a child learning that if I'm a scapegoat and people are all angry at me, overall the system is doing better because they're distracted from their other issues. Because that could translate into an individual being on a reality TV show, particularly in the reunions when there's a lot of tension, and he just offers himself up almost compulsively, subconsciously, to make everybody hate him. It's an interesting theory, right?
Just shut his mouth. The fact that I was willing to jump in front of him, it just shows how much I'm willing to jump in to protect him, and he didn't do that for me.
Don't really bring the daughter into the mix. You can say whatever you want.
Yeah, I had not made that parallel, but my goodness, what a thing for Liz to say, that when Jovi was about to hit Ed, I was willing to step in front of Ed, or at the very least, try to, stop it from happening. But when Angela was totally in my face, not only did Ed do nothing, but then afterwards was like, well, you deserved it. Yeah.
About Jovi is can be a jerk, but just don't bring the child, okay?
Yara, I'm sorry. I'm sorry.
And Yara is being a good member in the triangle now because she just said to Ed, look, I appreciate what you're saying, but don't bring up the daughter, okay? That's a nuanced, statement. And it also helps to resolve the conflict between Yara and Ed of just like, hey, thank you, it's nice, but don't do that other thing. Whereas Yara could have said, you're an asshole, or everything you said was right, or whatever. And then Ed is de-escalating as well, and he's saying that he's sorry. I don't know if he means it. I don't know if it matters too much.
It's okay. I respect. Thank you so much. I just don't want the kid into the mix.
Okay, I'm going to rewind this because this is a pet peeve of mine that Yara actually did not do. She started by doing it, but then she corrected herself. She said, it's okay. It's okay. Thank you. So when people apologize to people, it's kind of a rare thing. And when those, particularly if you're in a marriage or something, when those apologies happen, even if they're just slightly justified to happen, it depends on what we mean when we respond by saying, it's okay. Are we saying what's being communicated there? But I think there's a lot of verbatim words that are available to us that are, I think, more precise and I think more healthy. To say it's okay, it's a very frequent response. It's okay. You don't need to apologize. I don't know if that's what's often better, and she corrected herself, was thank you. Just say thank you. Thank you for apologizing. That means a lot to me. I think saying it's okay serves a number of purposes. One is we're just not familiar with the apology process, at least the healthy one. So we don't know what to say. We're like, it's okay, or don't apologize. Everything's fine. Also, we tend to deny our own feelings and emotions. Also, we don't like tension, and if we can get rid of it as fast as possible, we'll do that. And since they're apologizing, there's some tension. There's nothing. Don't worry about it. Everything's fine. Let's just have happy thoughts. Also, I think that for certain people, they feel like they don't deserve to be apologized to. So there's no, it's okay. You don't need to apologize to me. I'm worthless. Don't worry about my feelings. So in that situation, Yara corrected herself, which is great. She's like, it's okay. Well, thank you. Let's rewind.
Yara, I'm sorry. I'm sorry.
It's okay. I respect you. Thank you so much. I just don't want the kid into the mix.
I understand.
So it's great. And we can all model ourselves after Yara. And the next time someone apologizes, finally, because he absolutely should apologize, Ed, and you want to appreciate it on so even it I don't case by case basis, but often even if you don't want to forgive, I guess that's another part of it is either we're saying it's okay or we're saying like, well, screw you. You can say thank you because if you're in a relationship with someone ongoing, you want to have that encouragement, like apology, appreciation, thank you. You don't have to forgive. You could say, thanks for apologizing. I'm not ready to forgive yet, though, but thanks. This is a beginning. That's a start. Or thank you. Can you elaborate more? You want to grease the wheels when possible. You want to reward behavior that you're looking for. You want to pay attention. I'm often doing that with couples in my office is when so-and-so does something that you've been finally wanting them to do, you want to reward them. You want to acknowledge it. It's like, it's sort of silly, but it's like giving your dog a treat when they go poop in the yard. I mean, not to treat our partners like they're dogs that poop in the backyard, but that when you finally get something that you're looking for, rewarding it increases the likelihood of it happening automatically just based on training people. But also it is, I think, just, someone had to extend themselves and it doesn't take much to say thank you to them. And so that appreciation, plus it says, yes, that is what I'm looking for. You did it. Because if you do something good and they don't say that, then you're like, I thought that's what they wanted me to do, but I didn't get it. You want that system working, that I'm sorry, thank you. I'm sorry, thank you. I'm sorry, thank you. Can you elaborate more? Okay, elaboration. Thank you. I still don't forgive you. How, these routines and back and forths need to happen. So it was good that she did that. This episode is sponsored by BetterHelp. If you're anything like me, your relationships are very important to you. And really, most of the reason why I make content, and perhaps a lot of the reason why you're here with me today, is to think about your relationships. And evidence shows that strong attachments contribute to all sorts of positive outcomes, like improved well-being or happiness, lowered anxiety, lowered depression, better relationships with your kids. Now, one type of relationship that we're often talking about here is romantic relationships or soulmates. I would say that a huge factor in the success of my relationship with my wife has to do with all the therapy that I've been through. Well, one place you can find a therapist to help with that is at BetterHelp. If you're thinking of starting therapy, it's definitely worth giving a try. So become your own soulmate, whether you're looking for one or not. Visit betterhelp.com/Kirk today to get 10% off your first month. That's BetterHelp, HELP.com/Kirk.
I have no idea why my husband is so obsessed with stripper, and it's always been that way. I try to look good for him. I try to not let myself go. I know I have a child, my body changed, but I still go to the gym every day. I try to be good for him.
Oh no, Yara, no. You don't have to do that for him. You can, certainly go to the gym and try to look good if you want to, but it's not your fault. He should love you regardless. And if he doesn't, then I don't know. You can have your own values about that. But if I were in your shoes, Yara, I'd say, fuck him then. Move on then, pal. I want someone who loves me for me, not for that. So that's the first time I think we've heard her say that explicitly. That points to a lot of things. It sounds like this is an ongoing thought for her of, if I can only be a more attractive woman, then he wouldn't be going to the strip clubs. And yikes. I don't blame Yara, but she deserves to go down a path of recovery herself so that that sentence, as it occurs to her, she knows that that is unreasonable, that she does not deserve to feel that way. Even if he literally it's possible he doesn't even think that, but even if he does think that, like, oh, I'm going to strip club because my wife is fat after having a child, even if he does think that, which I don't even know if he does, then screw him. But wow, so does he want her to feel that way? Is this helpful? There's been a lot of seasons, and there's been a lot of things, and he did say some things to her on camera that were in that direction. You just have to figure behind the scenes it would be even worse. So yeah, there's a lot of things pointing towards, in the beginning, they had that first season, and I just thought, my God, this relationship has a lot of issues. I mean, the contempt and the mistreatment and the lying to each other and the just absolute anger and just mistreatment both ways. And then they seemed for a couple seasons to have very minor issues that looked shenanigansy, and there was a lot of evidence that they actually had a pretty good relationship, with some notable anomalies. But now with this season, especially this whole sequence, I'm returning to the original. And, we can never know because we're just seeing an edit and it's just speculation. But I'm returning to that original viewpoint from the first season that this relationship has some pretty deep fundamental issues that, and there's a lot of roads to Jovi's behavior that I've treated where, the typical hypothesis, I suppose, is that the Jovis of the world, they just want their cake and eat it too. They're misogynistic, they're patriarchal, they've been taught a certain thing, whatever. And that, is probably a factor, but all men, including myself, have been indoctrinated into that, and yet most men would not even come close to doing what he's doing. So it has to be something else in my mind, and there are many roads. One road is that you might be abandoned by your mom. Umberto talks about this. My co-host on the podcast talks about how when he was abandoned by his mother, when he was 3 or 4 or something, he was traumatized, obviously, and as a way of coping with that, one of the ways, subconsciously, is that he set out, and then he was sexually abused by his babysitter when he was a little bit older than that, and by a girl babysitter who was 8-10 years older than him. And he, later on in life would, in a number of different instances, he would really try to please women sexually, completely putting himself in the back burner because he wanted to, he desperately wanted to have some evidence that he wasn't abandonable and that they approved of him, so it sort of had his mom and his abusers wrapped up into one. And so a part of that actually led him to strip clubs, and he would go to strip clubs to try to get the strippers to like him. And so he would pay them a lot of money, and he would be very charming, and he would put himself in the back burner and all that stuff. And he would be temporarily satiated with some sense of I matter, or I can get people to like me. But overall, he's still suffering, the pain and the abandonment and the trauma. It's just sustaining itself. If anything, it's becoming worse because he's attracted to people who inherently don't want to be with him, right? It's not typical that a stripper actually wants to hang out with you in their soul. They're doing it because it's a job. They might like you as a customer, but not as a friend or a boyfriend. I do realize sometimes people do date strippers, but anyway, my point is that it can the next morning just feel like, well, did the person only talk to me because I gave him money or blah, blah, blah. So there's a lot of roads to the seeming compulsive strip club activities, right? And there's a lot of other angles as well. There's a lot of suffering, a lot of pain, and a lot of trauma that can manifest this way. And I just have to assume that there's something going on there with Jovi. We haven't, at least from my memory, learned anything about Jovi's history that would point in this direction. But I just have to assume there's something going on there.
And to be honest, I'm so insecure. I have so much insecurity.
Now, I'm not saying that somehow justifies his behavior, or that Yara should just let it go, or that Yara should even stay married to him. I'm just saying that the typical hypothesis, typical conclusion that he's just a D-bag is not usually what I find when I treat people.
I just like was feeling bad about myself, and he bring all this insecurities back because do I'm really that ugly? Not ugly, just like do I'm really that bad? I get it. Maybe stripper doesn't complain. I complain all the time. Maybe strippers like I don't know what they do that I cannot do. Like
yeah, it's this old trope. I'm old enough to remember when it was just assumed that, well, you know, wives, they're constantly nagging and complaining all the time. And if you would have asked me when I was 10 if that was true, I probably would have said, well, yeah, I mean, everyone understands that women complain all the time. But the issue is that when you have the patriarchy and as a woman you're being mistreated and harmed, then you're going to speak up. And since no one ever listens to you, then you either have to stuff your feelings or speak up louder or say it more often, try to be more convincing. And then you're labeled as a crazy person, you know, as a nagger, as a complainer, as a typical woman. And then you start to melt down, and then you start to have other symptoms, and you might get depressed, and you might develop an addiction of some sort. Well, then you're crazy, and now you're in an institution. I wonder if Yara has absorbed that from Jovi or from her childhood or both. Now, can someone, including a wife, complain too much? Yeah, absolutely. But the complaining we've seen doesn't indicate that Yara is looking for things to complain about, that if anything, she doesn't complain enough. So it doesn't stand to reason that, away from the camera, that she just invents things to complain about, right? And of course, we've seen Jovi treat her this way, that fight earlier this morning, because this is in the same day. She's concerned about the lies, and he just walks away and says, oh, you're always complaining.
Jovi always been telling me that if I will not be looking good, he will not be with me. So, makes sense.
Okay. Now, maybe she's misinterpreting what he was saying. I think that's possible, but it's also possible he said that, or at least in that direction. And that does indicate that he is being overtly harmful and abusive in that way. To say to your wife who recently had a child, but just at any point, that the only reason why I'm with you is because of you looking perfect, not just looking good, but looking perfect, then in whatever cultural or whatever his version of perfect is, why, Yara, would you stay with someone that would say that to you? You deserve someone to love you, and you love them back for your soul. And sure, you might like it when your partner is attractive to you, fine. But to give the impression, or to flat out say that I am only with you because of how Instagrammable you are and how sexy you are in the lingerie is disgusting. It's just upsetting. Yeah, wow, ick.
Like, I was drunk. Come on, give me a break.
You don't give it even that.
So there goes with that defense. So we're seeing more data. Similar to Ed, there's a pattern. There's a quiver of arrows of ammo. And so now he's at the point where he's like, I was drunk. What does that have to do with it? I was drunk? What does that have to do with it?
Get upset that the way I feel. You don't care. This is the way you talk.
I do care. I'm saying, like, don't get upset over it because it's not a big deal.
Then it's that. People will call this gaslighting. That's not gaslighting. If it was part of a bigger pattern, it could be, I suppose. But that's just deceiving, smoke screening, minimizing. We have a lot of words for it. And he's resorting to that. And I'm doing this so that you all can identify for yourself about if you do what Jovi does. I think most people do. Or your partner's doing this, you know what's happening. It doesn't necessarily give you a direction regarding what to do to respond to it, but you should know tactics and smoke screening tactics. And in your own kids, your kids will do this to you. In fact, a lot of this translates to children. that you'll have a certain defensiveness or response, and if you're not careful, you can be derailed or smokescreened effectively by that. All right, well, let's adjourn there. And everyone out there, please take care of yourself because you deserve it. You really, really do.